Hello and welcome to the first video for my exhaust fan controller project. In this video, I'm going to be discussing the problem I'm facing and some conceptual ideas of how I might approach solving it. You see, I got a new desk. It's really nice and everything, but I don't really like how hot my computer's getting whenever I run graphics-intensive games. My computer wouldn't actually fit in the computer bay with the door on it, so it was already just an open area, but there was definitely not enough airflow. There was only a small hole in the back for cables. When I stuck my hand back there, I could feel that the whole area was getting very hot, and the computer was hot enough that I almost couldn't hold my hand against it. My first solution was just to stick a fan in front of it. This obviously has some downsides. For one, there was a fan in the middle of the floor to trip over. It was also noisy, and I had to remember to turn it on and off. But it worked really well. The computer stayed at a good temperature, so I figured I was going in the right direction. I decided to add a more permanent solution by cutting a hole in the back and adding a fan. There was plenty of room to put a pair of 120mm fans, but I've found that those can be relatively noisy, especially for the cheaper ones, so I decided to go with a larger 200mm fan. I had a spare 12-volt AC to DC converter in my supplies, so I just wired that up to a connector and put in the fan. After running a few tests, I was happy with the solution, but it still had a couple of problems. The way it is right now, I have to plug in the fan anytime I want the extra airflow. Also, it's so quiet and out of sight that I can easily leave it on by mistake, and I'd rather not have it running 24/7. So now I've got a fan in my desk, and I just need a way for me to turn it on when I need it and turn it off when I don't. A switch is certainly the easiest solution. I could wire that up in no time. It wouldn't really solve any of my current issues, though. It would make it a little more convenient to turn the fan on and off, and it might act as a reminder for me to turn it off. Maybe I could even put a light on it to make it more obvious, but I'd really rather have it automated to take me out of the equation. The next most obvious solution would be to use the computer. I could run a wire from the power supply or motherboard straight out the back and plug the fan right into that. I could probably find a way to control that based on the CPU or GPU temperature, but I'd rather not have to wire the fan to the computer, and I also don't want to mess with the software. I could use a temperature sensor to determine whenever I needed the fan to turn on, and then read that with a microcontroller, and then use that to control the fan. I have some MSP430 launch pads around, but I'd have to add some extra hardware to drive the fan. This solution would basically use up one of my microcontrollers permanently though, and I'd still have to add other hardware to make it work. I also don't particularly like programming microcontrollers, so I think I'm going to go a different way. Since I'm going to have to build some extra hardware anyways for the driver, I think having an analog sensor and op-amp based solution would work really well for me. In fact, I think having two sensors would be ideal, so that way I can compare the room temperature to the computer temperature and only turn on the fan when they're different enough. Thanks for watching. In this video, I just introduced the problem statement. In the next video, I'll be discussing a few methods that I could use to measure relative temperature, including the one I have planned for this project.